Salvaged. The whine of plasma converters echoed through the main hangar of Outpost Virella, one of the last independent repair stations skirting the fringe of the Valari belt. Outside, a starstorm brewed, throwing angry streaks of blue lightning across the asteroid sky. Inside, Ryker Kael wiped sweat from his brow and cursed at the stubborn fuel injector lodged deep in the underbelly of a Corellian trade skiff. "Piece of junk," he muttered, prying it loose. The part gave with a sudden jerk, sending him sprawling onto the floor with a loud clang. From above, the repair droid buzzed sympathetically. "Operator Kael, you appear injured. Shall I call for assistance?" Ryker pushed himself up, shaking off the dirt. "Call for a bottle of Kasari whiskey and a long vacation, that'll help." The droid whirred non-committally and resumed scanning the skiff's systems. He climbed to his feet and checked his chrono. 5 hours until curfew lockdown. Enough time to finish the job and maybe, just maybe, grab a hot meal that didn't come from a nutrient brick. That's when the alert pinged. Bay 6 unauthorized docking. Ryker frowned. Unauthorized dockings weren't uncommon this far from Federation eyes, but they were rarely good news. Smugglers, thieves, or worse, desperate people. He tapped into the feed. The ship looked half dead, scarred hull, flickering lights, barely functioning landing gear. A shuttle, maybe mid-century design, long since out of production. It wheezed into Bay 6 like a wounded animal, settling with a shaky final thud. Ryker sighed and grabbed his coat. Bay 6 was dimly lit, the overhead still half fried from last month's solar flare. As he stepped inside, the shuttle's hatch hissed open, and out stepped a woman. She moved slowly, cautiously, as if ready to collapse or bolt at any moment. Her skin shimmered faintly, a lavender hue that marked her as not quite human. Her dark eyes scanned the hangar with haunted calculation, and her cloak, tattered and grimy, barely masked her thin, wiry frame. She froze when she saw Ryker. They stood for a beat, gauging each other in silence. "You're not here to rob me, are you?" Ryker asked, voice dry. She blinked, then offered a raspy answer. "Do you have anything worth stealing?" Ryker almost smiled. "Depends. You looking for food, tools, or freedom?" She hesitated, then replied, "All of the above." Her voice was melodic, even in its exhaustion, softly accented, deliberate. Her eyes held the unmistakable weariness of someone who had run too far, for too long. Ryker motioned her toward the corridor. "Come on, let's get you out of the cold, then we talk." She followed, but not too closely, like a shadow that hadn't decided if it could trust the light. She didn't speak much as Ryker led her to the kitchen alcove. He slid a heated ration across the counter, real food, not synth, and poured 2 cups of spiced something. She devoured it like someone who hadn't eaten in days, probably hadn't. Only after the last bite did she meet his eyes. "My name is TaNara," she said softly. "From the Lysari Spiral." Ryker sat back, arms folded. Lysari Spiral was hit hard during the border skirmishes. Refugee traffic's been thick around here lately. You military? She shook her head. "I was an engineer. Planetary infrastructure, power grids, old world fusion systems." "Then why the junker ship and the silent docking?" She hesitated. "Because my name's on a list I didn't want it to be on." Ryker didn't press. Not yet. He watched her, graceful, sharp, quiet. She wasn't here by mistake. He'd seen enough scavengers and scammers in his time to tell the difference. This woman had the kind of hands that used to hold precision tools and blueprints, and the kind of eyes that had seen something break and couldn't unsee it. "You got creds?" he asked finally. "No," she said. "Trade?" She hesitated again, then pulled a small toolkit from under her cloak. Compact, custom, gleaming even in the dull lighting. "I can work," she said. Ryker picked up one of the tools, a nano-welder with micro-pulse calibration. Damn thing was better than anything in his own kit. He turned it in his hand, then looked back at her. "All right," he said, "trial basis. You stay out of trouble, work the shifts I give you, and don't touch my whiskey." TaNara gave a faint, amused nod. "Deal." That night, long after the storm outside had broken against the outpost's shield walls, Ryker watched the footage again, security cam from Bay 6. TaNara stepping out of the broken shuttle. The way she moved, controlled, deliberate, but with something coiled beneath the surface. Not fear, not quite, survival. He paused the footage, zooming in on the ship's ID plate. It was scorched nearly beyond recognition, but just legible enough to confirm what he suspected. That shuttle had once belonged to a Lasari diplomatic envoy, which meant TaNara was lying. But not about everything. In the weeks to come, Ryker would wonder when exactly it started, this slow shift from curiosity to connection. But if he had to name it, he'd point to that moment in Bay 6, when the hatch opened, when she stepped out, when she met his gaze and didn't look away. She was broken, so was he. But out here, on the edge of nowhere, sometimes the broken things were the only ones still running, and some of them still worth salvaging. The first week passed in a blur of silence and solder. TaNara worked with quiet precision, repairing things Ryker hadn't realized were broken. Her hands moved like dancers, swift, sure, unshaking, as if every wire had a rhythm she could feel. By day 3, she'd rebuilt the faulty diagnostic rig in Hangar C. By day 5, she'd recalibrated the power distributor to run at 20% less fuel. By day 7, Ryker found himself watching her work more than he watched the systems. She wasn't just smart, she was graceful, focused, somehow both delicate and unshakable, like a blade made of light. "Where'd you learn tech that old?" he asked one evening as they worked shoulder to shoulder inside a busted surveyor drone. She didn't look up. "My father was a system architect, taught me how to read energy flow before I could read words." Ryker nodded. "He's still around?" A pause. "No." Silence stretched between them. Ryker didn't press. He was getting used to the way she spoke, precise but guarded, like every sentence was measured for weight before being released. He reached for a coupling wrench, but her hand got there first. Their fingers brushed. Static. Real or imagined, it jumped between them. They both froze. She looked at him, eyes darker than the void outside, and for a second, the air between them felt too charged to breathe. Ryker cleared his throat and looked away. "Guess I'll grab another wrench." She said nothing, but her lips curved slightly. That night, Ryker stood alone on the upper deck, watching stars cut trails across the dome. He didn't know what the hell he was doing. He was a fixer. He knew how to bend metal, weld hulls, splice systems. But people? Emotions? That was a different circuit board entirely. And this woman, this elegant, enigmatic spark of alien mystery, she was soldering herself into his life without asking for space, and he wasn't sure if he wanted to stop her. The next morning, he found her already in the engine bay, half inside a thermal stabilizer. She'd tied her hair back in a loose knot, revealing the delicate curve of her neck and the subtle shimmer of her skin where light caught it. Her cloak was gone, left in a heap by the bench, and in its place she wore a plain gray work shirt that clung in all the right places. He tried not to stare, failed, looked away. "You always start this early?" he asked. She glanced over her shoulder. "You sleep late." "It's 600, she offered a soft smirk. "Exactly." He laughed despite himself and handed her a toolkit. "Try not to outshine me too much. I have a reputation to maintain." "No promises," she said, her voice lilting with the faintest tease. Later that day, they sat side by side on the catwalk overlooking the main hangar, eating lunch from metal tins. A low jazz loop played from the overhead one of Ryker's old Earth files, vintage stuff that barely survived the last data sweep. TaNara tilted her head. "What is this?" "Chet Vasquez," Ryker said between bites. "Fusion rare smooth wave, my dad was obsessed." "It's warm," she said, eyes half closed. "Like melted sunlight." He chuckled. "That's the most poetic review I've ever heard for a sax solo." TaNara leaned back on her elbows, gaze drifting to the starscape beyond the viewport. "I used to think music was a luxury, something people only cared about when survival wasn't a concern. And now?" She met his eyes. "Now, I think it's why people survive at all." Ryker didn't answer. He couldn't. Not when she was looking at him like that. Like she saw through the layers of solitude and rusted armor he'd built around himself. Like she wasn't afraid of what lived underneath. He set his tin aside. "You ever miss it?" "Miss what?" "Home. Your world. Whatever life you had before it got hard." A long pause. "I miss the sound of rain," she said finally, "and the smell of orange bark trees. I miss not watching over my shoulder, and I miss speaking without having to translate in my head first. Ryker's voice softened. You translate beautifully, she blinked. Her cheeks flushed a deeper lavender, then faded. They sat in silence, the air heavy with something neither of them wanted to name. The next morning, the wealthy merchant arrived. Ryker spotted the incoming ship before the docking request even hit his console. Sleek, overpowered, too polished for a station like this. Federation plates, which meant politics. Problems. The merchant stepped out, flanked by 2 guards, wearing a smile polished to mirror sheen. I hear you're the best, he said, extending a jeweled hand. Ryker didn't take it. Depends who's asking. Baron Silas Ventari, I have a ship in need of refit. I'm told you do precision work. I'm willing to pay top rates. Ryker glanced toward the hangar where TaNara was working on a stabilizer coil. She hadn't noticed the arrival yet. What kind of refit? Ryker asked. Ventari smiled. Prototype hypersplice drive. Custom shielding. The kind of project that needs discretion and genius. Ryker folded his arms. I'm guessing you want me for more than my wrenching skills. Ventari's eyes glittered. You'd be compensated well. Ownership stake. A future. Behind them, TaNara stepped into view. Ventari's eyes flicked toward her, then lingered. She yours? He asked. Ryker's jaw tightened. She's not a thing. Ventari's smile twitched. No offense meant, just curious. She looks capable. Ryker stepped forward, blocking the view. I do okay for myself, thanks. I don't need a boss. I'll see what I can do, but this sounds like gray area to me. It's going to cost you. The ship appeared a cycle later. Ryker and TaNara made the upgrades required and added a few touch suggested by TaNara. Ventari was quite pleased, paying him much more than the job was worth. More of Ventari's ships started showing up, with more and more upgrades. The credits rolled in. Then other ships showed up at his docking bays. Some just needed help, but others were asking for weapons systems modifications, something neither he or TaNara were interested in. A so-called merchant vessel showed up with a questionable-looking crew asking for modifications Ryker was not willing to make. All the time, a few crew members were annoying TaNara, making unwanted advances. Can't do that, said Ryker, and sent them off. She stared at him for a long beat. You turned him down because of me. I turned him down because I don't work for people who think lives come with price tags. She was silent for a moment, then said, You're not like other humans. Ryker looked at her, voice low. You make me want to be even less like them. They didn't talk about the Ventari again, but something had shifted. TaNara moved through the station like she belonged now, not just a guest or hired hand, but a partner. She upgraded the filtration system in the water core without being asked. Rebalanced the station's aging gravity dampeners so the eastern deck stopped creaking at night. Every adjustment was quiet, precise, loving, almost. Ryker noticed everything, the way she tied her hair back with a copper wire from an old circuit, the hums she made while calibrating relay nodes, the way her hip brushed his when they worked in tight spaces, and how neither of them apologized for it anymore. One night, Ryker found her in the engine bay, standing barefoot on the grated floor, bathed in the soft green light of the central fusion chamber. She was staring into the pulse core, arms folded, her expression unreadable. You okay? He asked gently. She didn't look at him. I was thinking about resonance. Ryker tilted his head. Of the chamber? Of people. Now she turned to face him. You ever notice how some people seem to vibrate at the same frequency? How their presence just aligns with yours? Ryker swallowed. Yeah, I've felt it. Not often. She stepped toward him. And when you feel it, what do you do? He didn't answer. He couldn't. The air between them vibrated with something unspeakable. She took one more step, and now she was close enough that he could feel the warmth of her skin, the subtle scent of metal and flowers, and something entirely alien. TaNara reached out and placed her hand on his chest, right over his heart. Her touch was light, almost reverent. I don't want to be alone anymore, she whispered. Ryker took her hand, held it against his chest. You're not. She looked up at him, eyes shimmering with a vulnerability that stole his breath. I don't know how to do this with a human. Ryker laughed softly. Good news, I don't know how to do it with anyone. It made her smile, small, crooked, perfect. He leaned in, but didn't kiss her, not yet. Instead, he pressed his forehead to hers, letting their breaths mingle, letting her feel the thrum in his chest. When they finally parted, it wasn't with words, but with understanding. Days passed in rhythm. They worked together, ate together, even slept in the same quarters now, not touching, not yet, but sharing space, warmth, and the steady comfort of proximity. Ryker started to wake up before the alarms just to watch her sleep, curled up like a cat, the lavender hue of her skin glowing faintly under the soft lights. One morning, he brought her a gift. Wrapped in old cargo cloth, it was small and heavy. She opened it carefully, revealing a vintage calibrator from the early Valari expansion days. Faded etching on the side, "To those who build what lasts." Her breath caught. "Where did you find this?" "Traded for it 6 months ago. Was going to mount it in the office as a reminder not to take jobs that use junk. Figured you'd give it more meaning." She ran her fingers over the engraved metal, almost reverently. "I haven't seen one of these since I was a child. My mother had one like it." "You talk about your dad a lot," Ryker said gently. "Not your mom." TaNara's expression shifted, soft and distant. "She died when I was 12, reactor leak. I tried to fix the shielding, but I was too young, too slow." Ryker touched her hand. "That wasn't your fault." "I know," she whispered, "but it still feels like it." He leaned in, voice low. "You're not slow anymore. You're faster than anyone I've seen. Hell, you're probably smarter than me." She smirked. "Probably?" He grinned. "Okay, definitely." That night, the storm returned. Outpost Virella shook with the fury of ion winds and arc flares. Lights dimmed and flickered. The hangar shields buzzed under the pressure. Ryker and TaNara sat together in the control room, backs pressed against the wall, watching the storm through the wide viewport. TaNara leaned into his side, her head resting against his shoulder. "Do storms scare you?" she asked. Ryker shook his head. "They remind me I'm small. That's not a bad thing." She exhaled slowly. "Back home, we used to ride out lightning seasons in underground shelters. Everyone would huddle close, wrapped in warmth and song. After the first few hours, people would stop pretending they weren't afraid. That's when the best stories came out." Ryker looked down at her. "You want to tell me one?" She smiled. "No, I want to hear yours." He thought for a moment. Then, "When I was 12, I blew up my uncle's skimmer trying to convert it to solar fusion." She raised a brow. "On purpose?" "I thought I was upgrading it. Almost took off the roof." She laughed, a clear melodic sound that echoed through the room like music. Ryker watched her laugh and felt something inside him unlock. When she quieted, he reached for her hand. She didn't flinch, didn't pull away. Instead, she turned and kissed his cheek, light, warm, lingering just long enough to burn. Later that night, they lay side by side in the dark, the hum of the fusion core a steady lullaby beneath them. Ryker reached out, brushing a lock of hair from her face. "You still afraid of trying this with a human?" he whispered. She opened her eyes. Slow and deep and sure. "No," she said. "Not with you." Then she kissed him, not like before. This kiss was real, unhurried, deliberate, like they were building something with their mouths, something sturdy, honest, and just a little fragile. Ryker wrapped his arms around her and held her close, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, he didn't feel like he was just surviving. He felt seen, chosen, and something told him this wasn't just a connection. It was becoming home. Ryker woke to the sound of laughter echoing off steel. It took him a moment to register that it wasn't a recording or a dream. It was real, and it was hers. TaNara stood barefoot in the kitchen, swaying to one of his old jazz tracks, a welding torch in one hand and a frying pan in the other. She'd rerouted the auxiliary fusion plate to simulate something close to fire. He leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, eyes warm. "Is that breakfast, or are you trying to weld the eggs together?" She turned, caught but grinning. "Both. Fusion cuisine," he groaned. "If I'd known aliens made dad jokes, I'd have left you in Bay 6. She crossed the room and kissed him mid-sentence. "I'd have followed you anyway," she whispered. "Some things are drawn together, no matter the push or pull." The weeks that followed felt like a different lifetime. They fell into rhythm. She took over the systems mapping and diagnostics, turning Ryker's patchwork tech into an efficient, beautiful mesh of purpose. He handled the business end, clients, schedules, materials. But every night, they came together. In the control room, in the kitchen, in bed. They didn't define it. They didn't need to. What they had was deeper than labels. It was soldered with glances, sealed with silence, and powered by touch. And it was theirs. One afternoon, a message pinged through the emergency relay. A high-profile merchant cruiser had broken down near the nearby Arc field. It was Baron Silas Ventari. But this time, Ventari wasn't offering gold or power. He was begging for help. "We've lost power to all essential systems. Life support is failing. Coordinates attached. Please respond." Ryker looked at the screen, then over at TaNara. She stood quietly, arms folded, expression unreadable. "You could ignore it," she said. "I could," Ryker replied, "but I won't." She nodded, unsurprised. "I'll get the emergency rig prepped," she said, already moving. They arrived within the hour. The merchant ship was adrift, lights flickering, heat vents blown. Ryker docked manually while TaNara ran scans. The situation was worse than the transmission let on. Life support had minutes left. They worked fast, rewired conduits, rebooted systems. TaNara crawled through 2 meters of ductwork to bypass a failed thermal regulator. By the time they stabilized the core, Ryker's shirt was soaked, and TaNara's hands were black with grease. Ventari watched them silently the whole time. When it was done and the systems hummed with new life, he approached them in the corridor. "I misjudged you," he said quietly. "Both of you." Ryker didn't reply. Ventari's eyes flicked to TaNara. "If you ever want more than this scrapyard life, I have more than I need," she said, cutting him off. "You saved our lives," said the Baron. "Anything you need, just let me know, no strings attached." With that, he transferred a sizable amounts of credits to Ryker. She didn't even look back as they left. That night, after they returned to the station, TaNara stood by the viewport, gazing into the endless stars. Ryker came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You could have left," he said quietly. "You had every reason, every opportunity." She leaned back into him. "I didn't want to." "Why?" She turned in his arms and looked up at him. "Because I've found what I was really searching for." "And what's that?" Her fingers traced his jaw. "A place to build, a place to stay." He kissed her, soft and slow. "Then stay." "I already have." Weeks passed, then months. Together, they rebuilt the station, expanded it, attracted new clients, honest ones. Word spread that Outpost Virella wasn't just a repair hub anymore. It was something rarer. A safe place. TaNara never reclaimed her old name. She never explained the full story of her flight from the Lysari spiral. She didn't have to. Ryker never asked. What mattered wasn't what she'd run from, but what they were running toward. Each other. One cycle later, as they closed shop for the evening, TaNara handed Ryker a small wrapped box. "No occasion," she said. Inside was a data chip with schematics, new docking extensions, fusion dampeners, and solar mirror arrays. "I was thinking," she said, "if we added 2 more bays, we could take on high-capacity jobs. Real ones. Together." Ryker looked up at her, stunned. "This is brilliant." She smiled. "We could call it Salvaged Systems. Keep the old name, but rebuild what it means." He kissed her, right there, full of warmth and gravity and promise. "Then let's do it." Later that night, under low lights and warm sheets, Ryker lay with his head against her chest, listening to the steady beat of her heart, so alien, yet now familiar. "What do you think this is?" he asked softly. TaNara stroked his hair. "Something rare, something worth guarding," he nodded. "Feels like love," she smiled. "Feels like home." And in the dark, wrapped in warmth and the hum of systems that never slept, 2 souls, once scattered by war and silence, found what neither of them had expected to salvage. Not just purpose, but each other.